NATO warplanes had actually hit two separate convoys. In the first, the pilots were certain they targeted Serb military vehicles. In the second, though, the picture was more confused. Kevin Dunn reports.
For 5 days, NATO has been asked to explain how so many refugees were killed in Kosovo last Wednesday. Today, they promised answers.
If you want the facts, today you're going to get them.
What we got was an American Air Force general who said NATO F-16s attacked not once but twice at moving vehicles over a period of almost 2 hours. And they concede civilians may have been killed in both incidents.
NATO aircraft struck the first target area with 2 bombs and may have hit a civilian-type vehicle. In the second target area, they struck the lead elements of the convoy, vehicles that appeared to be military. Some of them may have been civilian-type vehicles, and it is possible there were civilian casualties at both locations.
According to NATO, this is the chronology of what happened around Jakovica last Wednesday. The first attack began at 13:10 local time, when an F-16 bombed what it believed were military vehicles. 2 bombs were dropped. The second attack began an hour later, just a few miles down the road, on a convoy of around 100 vehicles. It was attacked for 45 minutes and 7 bombs were dropped before the strike was called off because of doubts about the convoy's composition. This was the aftermath of one of the attacks in which there were clearly many civilian casualties, although NATO insists it thought the vehicles were valid military targets. But it is chilling to realize now that at least one of these vehicles was a tractor packed with refugees.
As we watch these videos in the comfort of this room and on a large display, it appears possible the vehicles are tractors. As I reviewed the tapes with the pilots, they agreed. However, they were emphatic that from the attack altitude to the naked eye, they appeared to be military vehicles.
NATO also confirmed a British Harrier saw the civilians but was unable to warn the Americans. Kevin Dunn, ITN.
ITN has exclusive pictures from inside Kosovo, clearly showing the hardship being endured by many ethnic Albanians still there. Some are in hiding in fear of Serb forces, others are taking desperate risks to escape. Our correspondent Terry Lloyd trekked into Kosovo across the mountainous, snow-covered border with Montenegro.
We had heard the stories of hardship. They were impossible to fully comprehend before this trek. The old man we passed had walked through the night using his walking stick as an ice pick. Mules laden with family possessions stumbled along the way, yet mothers carried babies, finding strength in the hope of escaping. Her child was sick and needed antibiotics. We were carrying medical supplies in case we could help. Slow down, they shouted as we carried on, but speed was never an issue as we picked our way up the rising mountain slopes. At last, the great plateau, etched with the route marks of fleeing feet. We had reached the frontier. Within minutes of entering Kosovo, the still of the mountain air was broken by the noise of patrolling Allied planes. It's now 5.5 hours since we set off, and we're deep inside the Kosovo mountains. But we've just witnessed a column of KLA soldiers on the retreat from a Serb advance and filing down the hillside over there. Locals have also said that the Serbs are advancing from the hill behind me, and we've been warned not to go on. We altered course and met 58-year-old Sadri Marksuti, who was carrying fuel and fodder to a makeshift home submerged in the snow. Hidden inside his log cabin were 30 terrified refugees with nowhere else to go. They sheltered us for the night and related many horror stories.
Serb forces entered into the villages and they are burning tractors, cars, wherever they found.
As we began to retrace our footsteps, 3 of the menfolk asked to join us to test the route and the safety for their families. Along the way, they were met by friends.
Those people tell us that one old man has been killed yesterday.
The old man, who'd taken a route we'd avoided, had been shot dead by a sniper. Thousands have pushed the limits of human endurance already, and many more will try if they can. Terry Lloyd, ITN, Montenegro.
And the ITN cameraman who filmed those pictures for Terry Lloyd's report was Mike Inglis. NATO says there'll be no let-up in the bombing campaign, despite a warning from the Yugoslav authorities that it could spark a major ecological disaster. Latest Yugoslav television pictures show huge clouds of smoke billowing over industrial targets, the result, the authorities claim, of NATO action. The big chemical and industrial suburb of Pančevo outside Belgrade has been pounded regularly during the past 26 days. NATO says it intends to starve Yugoslavia's war machine of fuel. Here, less than an hour ago, MPs ended their second Commons debate on the war. The Foreign Secretary, Robin Cook, put forward a key new government proposal for the future, that Kosovo should eventually become an international protectorate. Here's Michael Brunson.
Closing tonight's debate, the Defence Secretary, George Robertson, said that day by day and night by night, the air war was cutting into President Milosevic's capability, and it would continue.
And there is every chance that the Serbian leadership will soon see sense and decide that this game is no longer worth the candle.
But earlier, the Foreign Secretary, in a significant strengthening of the government's position, said that all Serb troops would have to leave Kosovo so that an international protectorate could move in to allow the refugees to return home.
Until we have rebuilt democratic institutions within Kosovo, its administration will need to be placed in the hands of international bodies, including the UN, the OSCE, and the European Union.
The shadow Foreign Secretary, however, was concerned that NATO's original aim had simply not been met, though he still supported the bombing.
NATO's primary objective to prevent a humanitarian disaster has not been achieved.
Another Tory was among a handful of members from both sides who criticised the campaign so far.
I can see neither clearly defined objectives nor any measurable progress in attaining them.
Some members clearly hankered after the idea of ground troops going in ahead of any protectorate being set up. Most, though, backed the Prime Minister's idea, stated again strongly today that the air war is the right way forward for now. Michael Brunson, ITN, Westminster.
To other news now, and 2 of the 5 men involved in the Stephen Lawrence murder inquiry have been charged with burglary at a warehouse in Kent. David Norris will appear before magistrates tomorrow. James Acourt and another man, Danny Mark Caetano, who's 23, have been released on police bail. All 3 are accused of stealing 32 cases of empty soda siphons from premises at Swanley. Police say a man has telephoned them claiming the right-wing racist group Combat 18 carried out Saturday's nail bomb attack in Brixton in South London. They say they're treating the call seriously, but with extreme caution, aware it may be a hoax. Helen Wright reports.
Nails like those used in the Brixton bomb were put on display by Scotland Yard today. Up to 10 pounds of nails, packed with the kind of explosive in fireworks, were used in the device. It was then hidden in a bag identical to this and dumped in the market. These X-rays show the devastating effect of the bomb. It left a nail embedded in the skull of a 2-year-old boy. About an inch of it penetrated the brain. The rest at the top right here was left sticking out of his temple. Surgeons who removed the nail say he had a lucky escape.
If it had penetrated more deeply, then clearly there would have been a risk of much more serious neurological outcome.
Police have revealed an anonymous caller has claimed the nail bomb was planted by the ultra-right-wing group Combat 18. The call was made from a phone box on the road in South London where black teenager Stephen Lawrence was murdered, though detectives say it may be a hoax.
Anyone virtually could have made that bomb. It was not sophisticated, but that isn't to say that it wasn't well constructed with horrendous consequences.
Police are now studying hours of closed-circuit TV pictures to try and find firm clues to the identity of the bomber. Helen Wright, ITN.
Fresh talks to try to rescue the Good Friday Agreement have ended in further deadlock. Unionist leaders went to Downing Street for talks with Sinn Féin about IRA weapons decommissioning. But both sides rejected a proposal by Tony Blair and the Irish Prime Minister Bertie Ahern to try to resolve the issue. Germany's reconstructed parliament building, the Reichstag, has been opened in Berlin as the German government made a historic return there from Bonn. The design by the British architect Sir Norman Foster has transformed the building, burned down in 1933 in a fire that ushered in the Nazi era. The campaigning in the Scottish Parliament elections, which take place in a little over a fortnight, went up a gear today as the Scottish National Party and Labour battled it out to win over Scotland's trade unionists. There's all to play for. Up to a third of voters are still thought to be undecided, as Harry Smith reports.
Speaking tonight at a fringe meeting at the Scottish TUC, Alex Salmond launched an attack on Labour's policy of using private finance to build public hospitals like this one in Edinburgh, which has prompted some union officials to resign from the Labour Party.
They are deeply upset about the private finance initiative and the amount of pressure we're seeing from Gordon Brown to try and dragoon them back into line is an indication that this is a fault line running through the Labour Party campaign.
Speaking earlier, Donald Dewar attacked the SNP's policy of independence.
The Nationalists offer the prospect of the immediate move to leave the partnership, to break the partnership that is the United Kingdom, and I put to you that the results would be uncertainty, financial confusion and job losses.
The delegates will be back here tomorrow. The politicians will be back on the hustings. With opinion polls showing up to a third of Scots still undecided, there's much persuading to do in the next 2.5 weeks. Harry Smith, ITN, Glasgow.